Welcome to the Sonic Tributaries podcast, featuring Eric Jellicoe, Dylan Keelan, TJ Pastori, where we discuss music, we jam, we play, we hang with special guests, focusing in on local tribute bands, regional tribute bands, and everything music. Strap yourself in for a hell of a time.
With the power that's in me, I propose to you in the dark. I was thinking that we could meet for a holiday. Maybe hoping that you would see what you said really left a mark. I was glad when you said we'd meet again someday. Hey, meet me on the way to the falling stars. Meet me underneath the fast falling moon. Meet me where the waves of the ocean crash against the dune. Meet me at the place where you buy your clothes. Meet me every time that you hear this tune. Meet me, hurry up, 'cause the weekend always ends too soon. Nice. Beautiful. Friday night and I'll wait for your call. Take your time, 'cause I will spend it all. Meet me on the way to the falling stars. Meet me underneath the bright yellow moon. Meet me where the waves of the ocean they crash against the dune. Meet me at the place where you dye your hair. Meet me every time that you hear this tune. Meet me, hurry up, 'cause the weekend always ends too soon. Everybody's mad at the weekend. Everybody's sad about the weekend. Meet me, hurry up, 'cause the weekend always ends too soon. Cheers. That was good.
That was fun.
That was good.
Nice. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Sonic Tributaries podcast. We are here with our guest, David Fagin. Thank you very much,
Hi, guys.
David.
Sure.
My name is Dylan Keelan. I am the owner of the Rock Shop, and I am in Live and Unplugged at Dark Side of the Hudson. Perhaps a new name change is coming soon.
I believe so.
This is my co-host, Eric Jellicoe,
Hello.
who shares those bands with me as well. This is TJ Pastori of Clarkstown Heating, Venting, and Air Conditioning fame.
Yeah.
And he's our producer and confidant and friend, and also podcast co-owner, hosty guy. We'll see what happens with TJ.
Multi-potentialite.
Right on.
I think this is episode 6.
Could be 7.
Could be 7. It feels like a 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been having some fun doing this. Eric and I have a couple of gigs coming up that probably are going to be irrelevant when when these episodes actually come out.
Okay, it's always good to announce them anyway.
Yeah, we got
So it's good.
224, February 24th coming up with Dark Side of the Hudson at the Nyack Center. We've got March 2nd at Garcia's, and that's in Port Chester. And then we have March 31st at
Turning Point.
Is it 30th or 31st?
No, 30th. I'm sorry. So it's March 30th,
30th.
Saturday at the Turning Point.
Yes, and we're going to be doing our Live and Unplugged thing, and we've been kind of retooling that and cracking the code with that and doing half acoustic and half electric, and
That's right.
album this, album that.
Oh, you guys are bringing the electric in.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Good response too, with that we've been getting from it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because you know
Your moms like it.
our mom's like, well, you get to use my hair for God's intended purposes and fucking headbang and have some
Exactly.
fun. And so it's been great. And then I'm actually going to be starting another podcast too for the Rock Shop specifically, where we do like community interviews and community outreach of other people. So that's coming up too.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Thanks, man.
Yeah,
Lots
absolutely.
of shit going on. We're having an open mic at Casa for the kids.
That's right. This
Which is
Saturday.
This Saturday, which is great, which again will be irrelevant when this comes out. But we're saying it. We do stuff.
Yeah.
Trust us.
Stuff goes on.
We do stuff.
That's right.
Anyway, our esteemed guest here, Mr. David Fagin.
Yeah.
Let's thank you one more time for
Absolutely.
coming out.
Thank
I'm
you.
honored.
Yeah, thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
This is the first time I've done an interview since like 2004.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, since Dennis Miller.
Wow.
Dennis Miller.
It
Cool.
shows you how hot I am right now. It shows you how much you guys know about who's hot in the music biz.
Well, with the reason that I thought of you is we were in a band together for a few years, and then
Don't remind me.
I can't blame him.
I'm joking.
I can't blame him. But then,
Halfway.
you've been in the music industry for a large portion, if not almost the entire portion of your life, and you recently started a tribute band called the Wankers.
Yes.
Yes, but before we
Called
get to
your uncle.
yes, but before we get there, let's start. How did you start playing music?
My mom.
Yes.
My mom was a singer in the Catskills
Okay.
for, the Borscht Belt, as they call it, for 30, 40 years, back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And my sister and I used to go with her when we were very little, and we would sit there and we'd watch her sing at the Concord, the Falls View, the Nevele, Kutcher's Hotel. You guys are Goyim. You probably don't know this stuff, but it's for Jews.
Like
It's
the
for Jews.
hotels that were
Yeah,
they
it's for
based
Jews.
Dirty Dancing on.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So we were like 5, 6, 7 years old, and we'd go and we'd see her. And it was amazing because she would open the show for the likes of Buddy Hackett, Alan King, Robert Klein, Jackie Mason, Red Buttons, the Smothers Brothers, Milton Berle. Like absolute legends. And it was such a unique existence. And so, my mom had the music bug. She was on Decca back in like 1963, I think. She was actually caught up in the payola scandal for a little bit. And she got discovered at the Brill Building at like 19 years old. And so music's just been in our blood. Funny story is that my dad used to conduct for her orchestra, and he can't read a note of music. So he used to just don a tuxedo. He was a computer salesman, and he owned a computer for,
Great
Computerland.
rhythm.
Right, franchise. And literally he would don a tuxedo, and he would go up there and he would stand in front of a 20-piece orchestra, not knowing what the fuck he was doing, and just because he knew my mom's act and knew how she wanted it and blah, blah, blah. And he would just wave his hands and do his thing, and people thought he was a real professional conductor.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. I ended up listening to the Bay City Rollers back in the day, Kiss, right, 1976. So I think like my first record was probably Magic by Pilot. Oh, What a Night. I remember seeing the Four Seasons on Sha Na Na in like 1975 or something, and the drummer was singing. I was like, oh my God, that's so fucking cool. I want to do that. And I took guitar lessons when I was 10 or 11, and I quit because I couldn't play an F chord.
Gave up at the F.
I quit. I could not, you have to put the
Yeah.
one finger on 2 strings, and it was kicking my ass, and I quit for like a year or two. Plus, truth be told, I was very scared of my guitar teacher. He was like Herman Munster size, and he had like size 19 feet.
Wow.
Jeez.
Giant, big shoes, right? Would come in and he boom, boom, like snowshoes, and he would just freak me the fuck out. This guy, Pete Simonse, I'll never forget it.
Wow.
He was like Dilbert, and he was like a 9-foot Dilbert, and he would just sit, he would take up, like the chair was like this big, Yeah. And so like a giraffe, and I quit, and about a year or two later, I went to a bar mitzvah, my friend Stephen Barnett's bar mitzvah, and I saw this dude rocking out, playing some blues, Johnny B. Good or whatever, and I was just like, the chicks were all around him. I was like, oh my God, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so I just picked up and kind of taught myself, listening to Journey and Styx and Kansas and Iron Maiden and whatever, back in the day, when you got the little boom box going and your Uncle Jerry's accordion amp, but it's a guitar amp now and blah, blah, blah.
Of course. Uncle
Yeah.
Jerry's accordion
Right?
amp.
Everybody
That's
had
what
Uncle
everybody
Jerry's accordion amp.
That's great. That's cool. So then
Yeah.
segue from there, right? You're starting,
Yeah.
you're just playing, you're doing your thing. You're in the music biz in a weird way because your mom is, your dad is, he's doing his thing. How do you, what's your first gig like? How do you get your first gig?
It was a fucking nightmare. I think I formed this band called Wickety Tut. It was named after a rabbit, this Wicky Tut rabbit. It was like my girlfriend at the time, I was like 17 or something. She worked at the Enchanted Forest toy store in Soho, very high end toy store. Like Matthew Broderick used to come in there and stuff. And each toy was like $1,000. You know, they were just like huge, real stuffed animals. And so I named this stupid band after this little rabbit. And we were playing the Rat Trap Cafe in Haledon, my first original gig. And my dad was managing us. And I was so embarrassed to have my dad at the gig. I asked him not to come. I was just like, Dad, can you please not come to this? You're cramping my style, blah, blah, blah. And he got so pissed off he didn't talk to me for 6 months.
Oh, my
Wow.
God.
Yeah, but that was the first original gig. And the Rat Trap Cafe literally was a rat trap cafe. It was like disgusting, you know, vermin on the floor, roaches, et cetera, et
CBGB
cetera.
status.
Yeah, oh, worse, much worse. Yeah, CBGB's is like the Plaza Hotel compared to this. It was Haledon, New Jersey. I mean, freaking ridiculous.
And that gig, it was originals. What was the instrumentation?
You know, 2 guitars, bass, drums, and keys. Same thing as it is now.
Yeah.
Right. We actually had interest from Richard Goddard, who produced the Go-Go's and was the partner for Seymour Stein when they started Sire Records. But that fell through. I'll tell you a really funny story. My dad had a connection, like one of our second cousins knew Steve Leeds, worked at MTV Studios, right? And this was like probably 88.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a meeting with Steve Leeds, Mr. Big, at the time at MTV. And we get into the office and we walk in and there's this really gorgeous receptionist sitting there. And my dad's like, hello, you know, Richard and David Fagin to see Steve Leeds. She's like, okay. And he's like, you are a very attractive young woman. And I'd never seen my dad hit on another woman in my life. And, and he's doing it in front of me right
Thank
here.
God.
Right? And he was like always devoted to my mother. And I was like, oh my God. And all of a sudden my whole world implodes. My dad's hitting on the receptionist as I'm ready for the biggest meeting of my musical career. And I couldn't think about anything. Everything was a blur moving in slow motion, right? Steve Leeds calls us into his office. I'm not even paying attention to him. He puts my cassette in of the band. And for some reason, of course, typical, one of the biggest executives in the music business has a boombox that plays at half the speed. So our song that's supposed to be like, you know, you say that you were a love, it's go, you say that you were. And he's like, and it's just drawing like it's on Quaaludes, right? It's playing cassette tape.
Was he doing this purposely?
No, he had a fucking shitty boombox.
Oh.
I
That's
remember
all.
I had cars that did that with the
Yeah,
cassettes. You ever
right?
notice
And
how
they
the
play at
cassettes
different
would be
speeds?
just slightly slower.
Right, right. And this one was like twice as slow. So it was ridiculous. He's like, you know what? I don't hear a career maker, so I'm going to ask you to leave. There's the door kind of a thing. And so as we're walking out, I'm still just, I didn't even care that my whole music career, my whole shot just fell apart because the guy had a tape player that played too slow. We're walking out and I'm like passing the receptionist desk and I look and I see a little sign and it said, come in, introduce yourself, compliment receptionist.
Oh.
There you go.
And I was just like, oh my God.
Why do you think that sign was there? Compliment the receptionist?
Because it was probably like one of those stupid Spencer gift things, right? Say hello, say your name, and then say something nice to the receptionist. And my dad went, you're a really attractive woman. And I didn't see the sign, and I was just like, holy shit, my dad's trying to hit on someone right in front of me right now. And do I tell my mom? Do I not tell my mom? Do I tell my sister?
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So you got into that office. That's a great office to at least even say that you walked
Right.
into. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So then, what, you're 17.
Yep.
After 17, that's your first gig you had at the Rat Trap.
Yeah.
Where are we next? What are we doing next? Did you go
Man.
to, I don't even know. Did you go to like some other career or are you still
You know,
hanging in the music?
I was, I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I mean, I knew I wanted to play music, but I was a shitty songwriter. And I didn't want to do the cover thing. I was always like, cover for pussies. You got to do it. You really go for it and blah, blah, blah. My friend Eric, who lived across the street, Eric Klein, he played in a really successful cover band at the time called You. They were big in Pennsylvania and stuff. They were making like almost $1 million a year back in the day in the late 80s. And I was just like, and I'd hear them rehearsing and I'd be like, no, I'm doing the original thing, whatever. But, I just, no one ever wanted to play in a band with me. Like even in high school, no one would play in a band because I couldn't shred. I still can't shred. I could just play chords, whatever. But, that was that. And then I would just kind of be like, I would make up excuses why I couldn't go to an open mic and hone my craft. And, or I don't want to drive too far. It's in Queens. It's going to be too long of a line, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw the video for Right Now, Van Halen's Right Now. And there was a moment in the sign, it said, right now, time is having its way with you. And I was like, holy shit. It just struck a chord with me. And I was like, fuck, I got to do something. And it was like, was it 1990 when that song came out or something?
That's right.
So right around 89 or 90, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I went down, I started doing open mics. And from there, I just decided to put an ad in the Village Voice and try and find, fellow musicians to play with. And I found them, but, it was a nightmare. I found a drummer who wanted all his gear to be packed up by me after the show.
That's actually a pretty good idea.
Right?
I'm getting some great ideas from this.
Literally, he would only join the band if I took all his gear, packed it up, and threw it into my car. I had a huge 1978 Buick, right?
Yeah.
It literally fit everything.
Yeah.
Like the whole band would fit in the back seat of this car. And so he had a rehearsal space at the music building in the city. And we played Kenny's Castaways, right?
Sure.
Till like 2 a.m. for $50. And at the end of the night, they would take off and the whole band would leave me to like load the shit into the car and then drive it to the music building, which is not the greatest neighborhood in the world if you've ever been there, right across from the Port Authority. So I would have to make like 6 trips from the car to the curb, from the curb to the elevator, from the elevator up. And in doing so, one time, I had all the gear on the street. I must have missed it, but, the drummer, he had a spare guitar. It was like a $100 piece of shit, whatever, Dan Electro or something. Somebody walked off with it,
Of course.
and he sued me.
Oh my God. For $100.
Yeah, he sued me for $100, and he won.
Jesus.
That's horrible.
Yep. So, so I did stuff like that.
How could you continue after that?
Yeah, seriously.
I just remember like, but you just had a guitar player who would quit. You'd have a bass player who'd quit. You'd have a drummer who'd quit every 6 months.
Yeah.
You'd have to start from scratch. And I just remember driving in and out of the city after working like 9-10 hour days, getting up at 6 a.m., doing your job, and then going into the city to rehearse 2 or 3 times a week and just going, is this ever going to get any better? And the answer is no, because now here I am. I'm 55 years old and I'm talking to you schmucks. So literally it was
better
awful.
now though.
It's okay.
You
It's
got
okay.
a good thing.
We got it going on, but here we are. I'm playing in a cover band.
Yeah, but
right?
you got a good thing going.
Yeah.
It's cool, but it's it's a cover band. It's Jersey, and 80% of the venues are gone that were cool back in the day. The Club Benets and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The Hunka Bunkas and stuff when
Yeah.
the Moors was big out in Brooklyn. It's not like that anymore. There's like 2 or 3 bars that you can play, right, that have their own sound, a decent PA and a stage. Ulysses is cool. Yeah.
That was always fun.
Yeah.
But so you go, you have
Yeah.
horrible, terrible experiences.
Oh my God.
And as an original band, as I have too.
Right. Who hasn't?
I have too. I've been there. But like, I guess you're coming from a unique perspective because you are the frontman, songwriter, leader, organizer of the band. And you've kind of done that since 1988, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I've always like, maybe I'll sideman, maybe I'll frontman. I've kind of dipped in both ways.
Yeah.
And sidemanning is great. Frontmanning is that. It's so much responsibility.
Oh my God, it's awful. It's ridiculous.
So much responsibility.
Yeah.
You got to take that
Well, I'll call you back, Mom.
He used to do that on stage.
Right? What
We
was
would be
the song?
playing some gig at like, what was it? I think the last time I remember was Bar A. We were down in Bar A on the Jersey Shore, and we're playing there. For the first time that I played there with you, I'm sure you played there before, and I
Right.
played there before, but we're there, and it's a bigger venue that actually pays you okay, and they have a nice backline and a nice stage, etc. And we're there, and we're into like the first song, and all of a sudden he goes like this, hold on, and we're all still kind of playing, looking around, and he goes, Mom, I'll call you back.
Was that the first song though? I don't think it was the first one. I think
It was Tom Petty's not American Girl.
Was
yeah,
it?
Yeah. So I think it was the first.
Okay.
Yeah. It
Cool.
was either first or second.
Mhm.
He did it. It was hilarious, and I was this fucking guy. Like,
Yep.
It's great.
anyway.
Me, Mr. Comedy.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, let's keep running down that. I've been on both sides of that. I hear where you're at, front man, side man. It's fucking hard. We were just discussing like where we're gonna go with another project, and we're talking about personnel and how the hell do you get the personnel to
Well,
actually commit?
Yeah, I mean it's impossible, especially back in the day. It was even more impossible when you had to put ads in a newspaper and drag a cassette to meet somebody to pass it off. Now you've got MP3s, YouTube. People can come into your band, have never even met you before, 2 weeks ago, and learn your entire 30-song set.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because everything is either on YouTube. You can send them MP3s of your medleys and all that stuff.
All
And
the information moves so fast
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Yes.
it's so much easier.
I remember when I auditioned for Counterfeiters, your band, you sent
Don't
me-
remind me.
you sent me this medley, and
Right.
you had this like it was a shitty MP3, but it was an MP3 nonetheless to easily learn how everything transitioned, and it was like, oh, this is so useful. I'm not going to show up to this particular audition and be like, how does this work, and have to learn
Right.
on the spot. And
Yeah.
I was like prepared. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I know exactly what to do.
Nobody did that before with you? Like
No, people have done that
Oh, okay,
before, but
cool.
I'm just talking to your point
Yeah,
that it's like
yeah.
a lot easier to.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was
Figure
so
it
much
out.
easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
So here we are in your timeline.
Okay.
We're moving along here.
I don't even remember half this shit, but go ahead. You're bringing it back.
You're killing it. You're
Go
killing
ahead.
it. So
Yeah.
you're struggling with original band. How did you get it together to get to a point where you were able to
Practice.
get some traction?
You go through players, and you eventually you come across guys like the biggest change for me was meeting a guy, kid Evan Silverman. He was the bassist in the Rosenbergs back in the day when we started out, and I remember this. It was unique because his mom answered his ad and left me a message on my answering machine. My name is Ellen Silverman. I'm just calling for my son Evan. He's only 18, but he's really good and he's really dedicated. And please give him a chance. And blah blah blah. And I was like, oh my God, I got to meet this kid.
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
Yeah.
because everyone else was like, yo, dude, what's up? I'm a drummer. Blah blah blah. I'm a bass player. So I met him, and he was an idiot. But I'm just kidding, Evan. Sort of.
not
Yeah,
kidding.
he was just very young and naive. Right. He was 18. Very young, very naive, but I could see he was going to be dedicated, and he was dedicated. I mean, we did some, shows in a slaughterhouse in Buffalo, driving 7 hours in snowstorms on a Tuesday night, playing to nobody, et cetera, for years. And Evan was the one. Evan was dedicated. So me and Evan, we found a drummer, we found another guitar player. We had names like the Rockefellers or something like that, and we realized we had to come up with something else. So, I think I was reading something about the Spies at the time, Julius and Ethel, came up with the Rosenbergs, and we started playing the New York scene, right? Brownies, CBs, whatever we could. CBs was like a dream for us at the time, but Brownies, Luna Lounge, Don Hills was great. Don was one of those guys that would, literally you'd call him up on a Tuesday and he'd give you a gig on a Thursday if you needed a showcase or something. Kenny Gorka was like that at the bitter end. They were really artist-friendly guys, especially in a city where you got no radio support, right? The worst radio in the history of radio is New York radio. It was just nothing but commercials and ads and dollars and big superstars. When you go to that was the thing that we found when we started touring with the Rosenbergs was, going to places like Athens or even Omaha when the Omaha scene was breaking. We were there playing with Death Cab for Cutie in a basement. Nobody knew of them and stuff. But the radio was so supportive of their local music.
Mm-hmm.
And we never had that in New York City. You'd have it everywhere else. Chicago, DC. Oh, there's a band playing blah, blah, blah. Go check them out. Never on New York.
Yeah.
In fact, when we, and I'm going a little bit here, but a little bit ahead, but when we won K-Rock's unsigned band competition, as soon as we did our first interview on the air, the guy whose idea that was fired the next day. Like, you're putting unsigned bands on our freaking radio station? Canned. Gone. The whole thing was over. Shot. And it was supposed to, be like, oh, they're going to build us up and put us in rotation
Yeah.
and have us on prime time.
Yeah.
Boom. One interview on a Sunday night. Monday, the guy was gone.
Wow.
So anyway, we start playing around, and we realized, early on that, going for a record deal, record labels are like HMOs, back in the day. When you need them, they don't want you. And when you don't need them, they're all over you. And we had, a very good example of that. This guy, Tom Mackay from Universal, who I believe is now one of the executive producers of The Voice right now
Okay.
on NBC, right? Back in the day, he was a golf pro, right? So he became an A&R guy because, right, who the hell needs to know anything about music if you're just an A&R guy?
Right. Yeah.
So,
golf,
right.
music, they make total.
So,
great
oh, yeah.
bedfellows.
The Lippman brothers who ran it back in the day, Avery and Monty, they made their golf pro one of the heads of their record label. And he saw us at Tramps when we played with the church back in the day. And he was like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. I want to sign you guys and, give you a record deal and blah, blah, blah. You're going to be huge. And we're just like, we didn't really buy it. We knew something was up, but whatever. So he takes us to dinner with our manager, and we're at John's Pizza in the Village, and he's like, here's to making a great record. Woohoo, and we're all like, yeah, all right, awesome. And he goes, you know what I need from you guys? If you could just sell 40 or 50,000 records on your own and maybe get added to 10 or 20 of the top modern rock stations in the country, I'd really have something to bring to Monty and Avery here. And so we're like, pardon us, Tom, but if we could do that, what the fuck would we need you for? So it was at that moment in probably 98 that we realized that, you know what? Fuck the record labels. Let's do it on our own. And we recorded a 6-song EP called Ameripop. And because we were big fans of the Britpop back in the day, it was big time Oasis stuff going on in Blur. And we released it, and it got on somehow. It landed on Dawson's Creek, one of the soundtracks for Dawson's Creek and Party of Five.
Nice.
And it got a lot of airplay on John Peel's the Peel sessions in Britain, and we ended up doing a 13-city tour of England, and that's how it kind of started. And then along
that early indie rock scene.
Yeah, the early indie rock scene. But it was crazy. Doing 13 cities, going to England, playing Camden Palace and stuff like that was really cool.
Wow.
But, playing some, shitholes and stuff like that as well.
Along the way.
And then, came Farm Club, and that pretty much changed everything.
Right. So, cool. So, trajectory-wise, you just fucking just kept throwing it against the wall.
Yeah.
Throwing it against
Well,
the wall.
we couldn't get a deal. No one would want to sign us. Every time someone would want to, take a meeting with us, they'd say, you guys are good, but it would take $1 million to break your band. So
Yeah.
we're not really going to do that right now, And I remember playing with the Strokes at Don Hills. Nobody knew who the Strokes were. And a bunch of labels were there, and they were all into the Strokes, and no one was into us because we were just like the Rosenbergs, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then Farm Club comes along. There was this show that we heard about on Universal, from Universal on USA Network after Monday Night Raw. And
Eric's favorite.
Absolutely.
Exactly, right? So it turns out that Universal started this TV show and record label. It was like a precursor to American Idol. This is 99, right? And so the deal was they wanted to take unsigned bands and put them on TV with major stars like Counting Crows and Dr. Dre and whoever. And so they heard one of our demos, and they liked it, and they wanted to put us on the show. Make a long story longer, and we said, sure, let's go on the TV show, and blah blah blah. Matt Pinfield was the host. They paid everybody in the audience like $100 to shout Farm Club, and this was like back in the day when people still thought MP3 was a Star Wars droid, and no one really knew what an MP3 was, and uploads and downloads. It was really the early days of the internet, 1999, and we were like, yeah, let's go on the show, and they sent us a record deal or a performance contract through our fax machine at the time. I'm sitting there with my girlfriend Paula, and we're looking at this thing, and it's coming 26 pages comes through, right? A 6 record deal They own our website. They own our music. They have the right to break up the band. They can put beer commercials, cigarettes, whatever they want to do. They own our publishing rights, our sync rights. And this is for 2 minutes of television time. And then the kicker is they don't have to sign us. Like, we have to sign with them, but they don't have to sign with us. So they have us for 2 months after we play the show, even if they don't want us. That's the no compete clause. So no other label could even talk to us for 2 months after they saw us on the show. And, you know, in the music business, the turnover is, you know, every other day for record executives. So we're like, this fucking sucks. So they don't have to do anything with us, but we're, you know, in with them. And so I just sent an email to some of my friends in bands, which was a really new thing back in the day. And no one knew what email was. It was just early days. Everyone was on AOL with dial-up, like,
Mom, get off
Right.
the phone.
modem, right? You're on online porn, and it takes like 20 minutes to download a JPEG or something, right? Right, exactly. Everyone knows what that is. So
We do.
I didn't, but I heard it. So I sent an email to some of my friends, like, watch out for these guys. And Farm Club's slogan at the time was, somebody's going to get a record deal. To which we responded, is that a threat? and lo and behold, it made it to every desk of everybody in the music business. You know, it was like early days of the net. We were credited as the first band going viral when the term still meant infection. So we got calls from CNET, CNBC, the LA Times, Entertainment Weekly. And suddenly the label at Farm Club, Universal, they go, all right, we're going to sue you guys. And we didn't even know this was happening, by the way. Like, this happened on a Friday night where we got this record deal. We turned it down, sent out the email. Somebody posted it on this thing called a chat site. We didn't know what that was, Velvet Rope, or who the hell knows what that is back in the day. On Monday, we had a meeting with our attorney for a completely unrelated thing, and every partner in the firm was sitting there waiting for us. We're like, the hell is this? We can't even get one of you guys on the phone, and there's 6 of you. Oh, you didn't hear your email made it to the desk of everybody in the music business. People want to kill you and sue you and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, okay. So he puts like this woman on the phone, and she's like, we're going to sue them and blah, blah, blah. Rosenberg, you're defamation, you're slandering us and blah, blah, blah. And our lawyer's like, go ahead. You know, it'll make our day, right? Sue us. A big, huge company suing this little baby band from New York. And she goes, oh, yeah, you're right. We won't sue them. Let's sign them. And they wanted to sign us, literally. And Jimmy Iovine came to town to talk about signing the band. And at the time, it was crazy because Courtney Love was emailing me. We were going back and forth. She's like, watch out for these guys, you know,
Whoa.
stay away and blah, blah, blah.
Watch out for Courtney Love.
Yeah.
Right. And this was back in the days, you know, when before she was even calm like she is now. This was like full on, you know, crazy.
Manic
Right,
Courtney.
Right. So it was crazy. We met with Jimmy, and at the time, I mean, there's so many backstories flooding in, but we had a manager who was from England, so he flew in, and he flew in on the red eye, so he was fucking exhausted through the whole thing. He couldn't keep his eyes open, and we were kind of auditioning this manager from Canada, this guy Ron, to be our U.S. representative, and he sat in the back seat of the limo that picked us up, and he drank the whole fucking bottle of scotch right before we get there. So he's pretty much pie-eyed, face down in his freaking calamari, like literally sticking his fingers in the dipping sauce. And
Oh my God.
at this meeting with Jimmy Iovine, like the biggest guy in the record business. And I'm just like,
I guess he didn't get the audition.
like, oh my God. And he's like, you know, Jimmy, I just want to say, you know, I spoke to Sandy the other day and she didn't call me back, but I'm not upset. You know, I just want to say I forgive you. He's like, who the fuck is Sandy? I have 1,000 people working for me.
Yeah.
The whole meeting went downhill and shit. And he still wanted to sign us. But, you know, we were like, okay, we can't sign with you unless we at least release some kind of a statement on Farm Club on the TV show that says, because we had a lot of emails from people going, you know, hang in there, you know, you guys are the indie giant killers. So we couldn't just suck up to the big guy, even though they wanted us, you know, to give us a deal. So we agreed that we were going to go on the show and we were going to release this, you know, speak for like 60 seconds before we played with the Counting Crows. And he's like, okay. And we had this whole deal in the works. And then Monday, the whole show was canceled.
Great.
And they blamed it. They said it
Thank
was us,
God.
but you know, the show sucked. It was like a glorified TV commercial. That's all it was.
What
Farm-
network was that on?
USA.
USA.
Oh, okay.
USA Monday nights. Yeah.
Damn, Dave.
Yeah.
It's quite a story.
So that was that.
That's a great story.
And then we partnered, and all of a sudden we became, you know, these artist rights advocates.
Right. And,
And,
so
yeah.
without the deal yet.
Without a deal, and I ended up speaking at this thing called the Internet Expo, and this is back in the day when you said, internet, and you'd fill the room with 1,000 journalists,
Yeah.
early part of 2000. So it was me, Chuck D, Bob Ezrin, Jerry Harrison, Evan from Biohazard, Evan Seinfeld, and we're sitting on this panel, and in the back of the room, there's this like interesting looking, looks like a British chap, and after we finish, he comes over to me and him and his partner, and he's like, I don't have to hear a word of your music. For what you just said, you're perfect for my new label and what we're doing. He's like, my name's Robert Fripp. I'm like, holy shit, King Crimson.
Right.
And
Like his YouTube channel these days. It's
yeah,
excellent.
yeah. So, that's how it started. And Robert was doing this new thing because apparently he was getting screwed over at the time. He was in
Sure.
a 7-year lawsuit with EMI over his publishing, and yeah, it was crazy. And then Napster came along. We partnered with Napster, and then we got blacklisted by all the indie stores
Oh yeah.
because of Napster, and blah blah blah. And here we are.
Here we are.
Yep.
So not to fast
Yeah.
forward too much,
Yeah.
essentially the takeaway from that is that you had a big struggle with some big, huge juggernauts that weren't giving you the attention, and then finally some weird fuckery came around, and you were like, "Yeah, no, we're not doing that," and you exposed the fuckery, and
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
fuckery was exposed, and then because of that, you gained more attention, and finally you ended up into the right place, kinda,
Right.
with Robert Fripp from King Crimson, who
Yeah.
recognized that what you were saying as a man and as an individual was probably going to be as awesome as your music.
Yes,
And then,
exactly.
right?
That
So
was-
then
yeah.
we get to summarize. So then, you get that.
You're doing good.
Right. Thanks.
Keep going.
So you get that. Robert Fripp sees you. I love Robert Fripp. Love everything that he does on YouTube these days. It's amazing. He's just quite an English gentleman.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
You could be a little bit better on guitar, but
Maybe.
He's a couple of
I
us.
mean, I don't know if he can handle a David Gilmour solo. We'll see.
right, right.
We'll see. But anyway, so here we are. You got to that point. Then you get signed, right? By Robert Fripp and
Yeah.
his label.
Right, DGM. We get signed by DGM. Napster comes along. We're bucking the system. So Napster at the time was bucking the system as well. And we decide, you know what? Napster's like, let's pay for a free full-length Napster copy to be released with your record when it comes out. So you give 2 for the price of 1. So for us, it was physical file sharing. It's like, how many times do you listen to a CD back in the day or a cassette, and you make another one for a friend and you give it to them? Well, we felt, if you had 10, 20,000 records sold, but you get 40,000 fans at your shows, that works for us.
Bonus.
And so the deal with Robert was really cool because we own the masters, and that was the important thing. A record deal, even to this day, is like basically paying off your house, and the bank still owns your house even after you pay it off.
Right.
So in our deal, we were the owners, and we were the content controllers. And in return, we gave DGM, Robert's company, a percentage of our publishing, a percentage of our touring, merchandise, stuff like that. So it kind of evened out. And it would have been great had we not gotten blacklisted.
Mm.
So, none of the radio stations would touch us because of, we went up against the big boys.
Napster.
I remember one of the guys at one of the big radio promo firms, McCluskey in Chicago. He said to us, look, he goes, they always took deals under the table. They took points. You could give them like a point or 2 on your record if they would promote it. And, that was like a good side deal for them.
Payola.
Yeah,
shit.
payola. And they said to us, look, it doesn't even matter what you guys pay us. No one's going to play. Like we can't touch you.
Mm.
So yeah, we didn't get any radio play. And then ironically enough, because, for a while we were, exalted as the independent, artist rights leaders. When the indie stores found out that we were partnering with Napster, they boycotted our tour. We had a whole in-store. Remember when you used to do Tower in-stores?
Yeah.
Tower Records, HMV, Strawberries. We had a whole tour of Tower Records set up and all the other, indie stores. And, they were like, well, you guys are partnering with Napster. You have the Napster logo. And it became very Spinal Tap because we said, well, you're partnering with Dave Matthews too, and he's at the front of your registers. Dave was releasing his new single on Napster, at the time.
Mm.
And yet, every store, every indie store in the business had Dave Matthews records right up front, but not ours. And we're like, well, why are you doing this? Like, oh, because your record has the Napster Kitty Cat logo on it, and his doesn't. It was like, your record is black in the end. You have what is it? She's smelling the glove, and on this one, he's smelling the glove.
Right.
Nigel smelled the glove.
Right.
Yeah.
Too big to fail.
Yeah.
Too
it
big
was
to
just
fail, Dave Matthews.
Right. It was like, he's the victim, and on this one, she's the victim. And so, yeah, we're just like, so you're boycotting us because we're promoting a file sharing service? And they're like, yeah. And we said to them, well, how much royalty do you pay on a $5 used Depeche Mode CD?
Yeah.
Which was the cornerstone of their business, right? There's all those used CDs and albums. It didn't matter.
Zero. No.
We got blacklisted by the big boys, got blacklisted
Is
by
that
the little boys.
before Metallica lawsuit? Or?
That was during the Metallica lawsuit. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So some history.
Yeah.
Rosenberg's history. So, wow. Great stuff, Dave. David.
Thank you, Dylan.
Talk to me about the Rosenberg's title, because we kind of joked around.
Well, he mentioned it earlier. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
the first
The
people,
spies.
or only people who've ever been sentenced to death that were American
Right.
citizens.
Yeah.
for
Because
giving
they were
Russia.
spies.
Basically, Russia got the bomb because of them.
Right.
Right.
Is that where you got the name?
Pretty much. I mean, it's kind of, that's what we had a street team called the Spy Society. A bunch of our fans and stuff would go out and, poster up flyers and shit. And we ran with it. I mean, honestly, it's hard to even remember. All I remember is I also remember at the same time we were coming up with a band name, I was at my friend's house and her grandparents were over, and they were like 80 years old, and they were talking about going skiing for the weekend, and they were in great shape, unbelievable. And their last name was Rosenberg. So I think I was like, if I could be that cool when I'm that old, which is now like 10 years away, but back in the day, it was a long way off. I'm like, if I could be that cool when I'm that old, that would be amazing. And I think it was kind of like the melding of the two, like seeing the Rosenbergs documentary, hearing it was like Kismet, oh, the Rosenbergs. I was like, it's a sign from God.
Right.
Little synchronous.
We're on a mission from God. And so that's how the name came about.
Cool.
And it turned out controversial, right? Rosenbergs are controversial. I think it's still even debated whether or not they were guilty or innocent or whatever.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, the one thing that I always would tell someone when I was on a panel, if I was talking to a kid who was at School of Rock or something, or up and coming, is that, you know what, there's no way, especially nowadays, right, when everybody could just, put a beat on a thing in their bedroom and get 8 million fans overnight just by doing some jazz hands,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to tour. You don't have to do anything. You just go like this on TikTok and you got 10 million followers.
Yep.
So I would say to them, look, you're releasing a record is like throwing a grain of sand onto a beach, So you've got to do something that makes you stand out, even if it's going against the grain, because the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah.
And even now in the Counterfeiters, we're blacklisted from like half of the good venues.
Why is that? Let's talk about the Counterfeiters before we go to the blacklist.
Sure.
So, the Counterfeiters, wow, what a fun band. I got to tell you a little anecdotal story. I don't know if you even know this, but so I was in Mr. Lovejoy for a while, and I was having some problems with the band. Everything was going well, and everybody in the band was cool, but I just didn't feel like I was the right guy because I was the singer and the bass player for the Counterfeiters.
Sure.
Not the Counterfeiters, the Mr. Lovejoy. And I would be in these scenes where there would be these crowds of Jersey Shore people who were, 25 years old, and they wanted Jersey Shore frontman status, and I was presenting myself like I was like a science teacher, like, well, hello everybody, we're gonna have a wonderful time this evening, and I promise you that we will rock.
You should have joined the Nerds.
They should have joined the Nerds. But like, I wasn't like, what the fuck, everybody, because it just wasn't in my wheelhouse. It just wasn't there, and I was like, fuck yeah, and we all knew it. No one was saying it. We were saying a little bit about it, but no one was saying anything. And then I get this call from David Fagin, and he says, hey, man, I'm looking for a bass player. Your name came up. You're interested? And I'm like, yeah, actually I am. What's the situation? And I was still in Lovejoy, and I auditioned while I was still in Lovejoy without them knowing for you, and I got the gig. But before I accepted it, right before I accepted it, I got fired from Mr. Lovejoy.
Nice.
Yeah. And then you said, hey, we like you. Everyone wants you to join. Like literally, like right around the exact same time. And I was like, oh, this couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because you're the front man of that band. I could just play bass and like sing harmony.
We were a good 1-2 punch.
We had a good 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
We had a good thing. It was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yep.
Okay, so Counterfeiters, I was in your band for, I don't know, 1.5 years about?
You actually fronted the Counterfeiters for a hot minute.
Did I?
You remember? You
No.
joined. That's how I got your name, because the original band threw me out.
Oh, copyrights.
The copyrights.
Yes.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
it. Yes.
That's true. I fronted the copyrights, which is how you got my name through
Right.
Gina.
Right. Through Gina.
Okay.
Yeah, our guitar player.
Okay, cool. So then, we figured it out. We got together. It worked out. Egos were fine.
Yeah.
I was hanging out playing bass. I was like, okay, good. I don't have to be the singer frontman. That's not my vibe right
Right.
now for the Jersey Shore. I can be
Right.
singer frontman in other situations, but for this particular situation, it was tough. So I get into your band. I play 1.5 years with you. How did your Counterfeiter thing come about? Let's talk about that.
Sure. I did the Rosenbergs for a while. We had another deal with a crazy redneck from the Midwest, this guy Steve Mahoney, who was the heir to the Monsanto chemical fortune.
Great guy, I'm sure.
Right? Amazing guy. Really, that was a tough one for us. We're like, do we sign with this guy? He had a $50 million trust fund. He was a recovering addict, a drug addict, alcoholic, the whole 9 yards. And his dad said to him, it was like in his 50s, his dad said, look, if you quit the sauce and, stop doing the drugs, I'll give you your inheritance, which is like $50 million. So boom, he becomes a born again Christian overnight, and he gets his $50 million and he starts a record label. And he wants some cred for the label. So at the time we had some street cred. So he signs us, and it was a comedy, because he was in a country western hip hop band. He was like an artist, like a country western hip hop artist. And he had more money than God. And he would make $100,000 videos for his band and then scrap them and do it again. And he was like fighting us over $5,000 for our video.
Oh,
And
real winner.
Yeah, it was crazy. His band was insane. It was called Pink Eyed the Gecko. Okay.
Can we find them?
Yes, you can look up Pink Eyed D''Gekko, and it's ridiculous because their mascot was a lizard with conjunctivitis. And we're like, how the hell did you get that name, Steve? Pink Eyed the Gecko. He's like, oh, it sounds like Pico de Gallo, and we were laughing and blah blah blah. And we're like, what if it was Pink Eyed the Gecko? Absolutely nothing to do with his music. It's like country western rap, and not to get off topic or to get forward, but we had a showcase with them at South by Southwest. They rented out the whole Iron Cactus bar during South by Southwest. Slash came to see our show. We did some shots with him. It was awesome. But he wanted his band to go on first. And we said, no fucking way. We're like, no way do you play before. You're going to clear the fucking place out. And so, sure enough, he goes, I'm going to play after you guys then. So we're like, all right. So we played, and then he played, and sure enough, the place cleared out. And he has a wireless microphone, and he's walking around in his, cowboy hat and shit. He goes out into the streets trying to sing to people, bringing them in. It's a fucking joke. He used to have a tour bus, and they would go to freaking delis and play a fucking deli. And he would hire the best musicians. He's based in St. Louis. He would hire the best musicians in St. Louis for thousands of dollars a day, $6,000, $7,000 a week for a tour bus, and drive to these little shitholes, dive bars, and pull up in a fucking tour bus. People were like, what?
Yeah.
Can you imagine like a fucking tour bus pulls up right next to the burrito place over here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the band gets out and they're all just,
Killers except the front.
right.
man.
Yeah. The guy's just a fucking idiot. So that was the second thing. Yeah. It was insane. We made a record with Keith Cleversley, who was crazy. He did the Flaming Lips and a band called Hum back in the day. It was insane.
And that's how you got to the Stern Show that you mentioned earlier?
The Stern Show was before this. The Stern Show, we were on tour with Echo and the Bunnymen at the time in 2001, jumping around a little bit here. And yeah, so a friend of mine knew Gary, was publicist for, I think, New Line Cinema at the time, my friend Nicole. And she's like, you guys got to go on the Stern Show. You have a great story, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, I don't know, how do we get there or whatever. She's like, you need a gimmick. So it turned out that our business manager at the time managed Dave Matthews and Kiss. And so he was like, oh, he was a strange. He's like, you're a Jew. Gene's a Jew. Let me reach out and see if I can get 2 Jews on the
Right then,
Stern show.
of course,
Stern's
it's
a
going to
Jew,
work out, right?
right?
Couple of Jews.
Oh, Aussie, right? He's like, all right, let me try. So I remember this. We were doing an interview for some internet radio station that, of course, no longer exists. We were in the lobby after the internet, and he calls up. He calls me, and I'm like, hey, Angus, what's up? He's like, Gene said yes. I remember that. Gene said yes. And it was like, holy shit. Gene said, yeah, he'll go on the Stern show with us. So sure enough, we go on the Howard Stern show.
Yeah.
And it was me and Gene Simmons. And it was like the band was sitting in the freaking green room with Hank the Angry Dwarf and a bunch of strippers at 6 in the morning. And Gene's fucking Simmons. And he just walks around calling everyone kike. He's like, oh, you guys are kikes. Yeah, kike. Come here. Come here. You're a good looking kike. Come here. Come here. And he's saying those words. And, and he's a Jew. So you can say it. It's like a black guy going, what up, nigga?
Yep.
You can't say that.
I can't say that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying it's like
Yeah.
that. I'm not saying it.
You said it,
So,
though.
no, I didn't. So it actually was one of the greatest and worst experiences at the same time, because as I was telling you guys before we started, we were there at 6 a.m. We thought we had the whole day, we had the whole morning. Howard cleared his schedule so that Gene can come on. And also on the show was Craig Gass, who was the Gene Simmons impersonator at the time. And this was the first time they were meeting face to face. And there I am tagging along, and it was going to be this show about, Gene was promoting a special that he was doing on Court TV about artists' rights and, the history of 100 years of screwing, labels screwing artists over from back in the 50s and 60s and all this stuff, John Fogerty getting screwed over and Connie Francis all the way back in the day. So anyway, we have all this stuff planned, and Gene's beautiful but ignorant and stupid as the day is long publicist doesn't bother telling Gary or any of the producers that Gene has to be out at a certain time. And so at like 8:30, Howard finally brings us on the show. We're sitting in the green room for 2.5 hours, having a great time hanging out with Gene. But at 8:30, we go in, and at like 8:45, Gary comes in and is like, Gene has to leave. And he has to go do the toy fair. So we only had like 20 minutes on the air. And behind the scenes, Gary was freaking out because that ruined the whole day. It ruined the whole show. And so it felt like, it was amazing, but I was only on it for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then to make matters worse, remember the E show on the E channel?
Mm-hmm.
They cut me out. Except for like one shot where they absolutely had to show me because I'm sitting right next to Gene, but I'm not saying anything. They cut out everything that I said. And so I'm just sitting there looking like Gene's gay lover.
Right.
And yeah, it was like one of those moments where Billy Crystal used to talk about being on Saturday Night Live and taking the subway down and being really excited and then finding out he got bumped.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was like so bittersweet because holy shit, we're on Howard Stern and we're hanging out in the back and shit, and we're shooting the shit. And then, I'm on the air, but we could have been on the air for like 2 or 3 hours.
But instead, you got.
And we hardly got a chance to say anything or do anything. And then the E channel cut me out. So.
Wow. Comedy of errors, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah, the Counterfeiters.
segue back to Counterfeiters. You started that, as far as I know, you started it yourself and with Carmine, maybe.
So what happened was, after I released a solo record in like 2008, right? And for 2 years after that, the best part about releasing your own record is if it doesn't sell, you could drop yourself.
Yeah.
Right? From your own label. That's a joke. So, so in 2008, after I dropped myself when the record didn't sell, I hung around for like 2 years and didn't pick up a guitar, didn't do anything. I was just really bumming out. And then I realized, a friend of mine was like, you love karaoke. You got the Jewish comedy Catskills from your mom and shit like that. You should do a cover band. You should be in a cover band. I'm like, no. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, no. So I was thinking about it. I'm like, all right. So I looked in the Craigslist thing or whatever it was, and I saw a couple of bands that were looking. And again, just like high school, nobody wanted to be in a band with me. I went down on a couple of auditions, and I was about to give it up. And I was like, all right, I'll just check one more. And I checked Craigslist again. And band was looking for a vocalist, and I went down and auditioned, and that was the Counterfeiters. At the time, check this out. At the time, they were called Counterfeit Sally.
Right. I remember that.
What the fuck is that? I was like, what is that? What is that all about? Oh, it's named after a transvestite hooker or something like that we saw at a strip club or something. And I'm like, no one's gonna fucking get that except you guys. That's an inside joke, right? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's the stupidest name in the world.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we'd like you to join. And I'm like, you got to change the fucking name. And so they're like what? I'm like, I don't know. How about the Counterfeiters? Counterfeit Sally, the Counterfeiters. We counterfeit everybody's music. We're a cover band.
Yeah.
And I remember Carmine saying, I got 100 T-shirts. What the hell am I supposed to do with them? They say Counterfeit Sally.
Carmine's a great guy. I miss that guy. So that's great. That's tremendous. And
Yeah, and then we printed up, I've got one right here.
I was just going to mention,
Our business cards.
look at this guy's business card. It's a fake 100. He would every single
that's
gig
great.
he'd throw it in the toilet. He'd throw it on the bathroom
Yeah, you
floor.
leave it on
People
the
picking them
floor.
up too.
And the people are like, oh,
Yeah. Oh,
shit.
yeah.
And they go around and pick them up.
And the best part is, you know, when you're playing the Jersey bars and they're 20-something guys, right? And they're all single and stuff, you know, you tell them these are the easiest way to tell if a woman is marriage material or a one-night stand. Because if you offer to buy her a drink in front of her friends and, you know, you open it and she laughs, you bring her home to meet your mom. If she goes, it's fake, asshole,
Yeah,
one night.
that's it.
Maybe two, tops, maybe a week, depending.
Let me compliment you again, David. One of the things you did besides that brilliant marketing
Right.
idea there was we would do weddings from time to time when I was in your band. And the second we would finish, David would like maybe take a quick sip of his vodka or whatever, and then he'd go and find the bride and groom. And
Oh, right.
And he'd go and find them, and he'd say, "How was it? How was it? You guys have fun?" 99 out of 100 times they'd say, "Yes, we had fun." And then he'd say, "Hey, can you just take a quick testimonial video of you guys saying you had fun?" And then they'd say, "Yeah, of course," because they're having a great time. They're drunk. They had a great band playing there for them. And he'd just put up the video and he'd say, "Hey, how was the band?" And they'd say, "Oh my God, the band was the greatest band of all time. It was the best night," because the endorphins are just flowing like crazy. And, you know, and we brought it. We did what we had to do, but that's the best time to possibly find them. So that was brilliant.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Stop doing that, by the way.
You did? Why?
Yeah, because it doesn't work.
Are you sure?
I mean, it works. You know, we still get weddings and shit, but it's like, I mean, it wasn't like once we did those, we got like extra amounts or anything like that. It pretty much stayed status quo.
Seemed to me like it was brilliant.
It was
I don't know.
I mean, listen, the idea, I have to say, is a good idea,
Yeah.
and it really works.
Yeah.
But again, you're a small fish in a big pond.
Yeah.
The knot, you know, the wedding wire, the knot. You know, I have to diss them because they are not cool. During the pandemic, which is this little thing, right, that happened a couple of years ago, when nobody was working, when the whole industry shut down, they refused to pause your membership. They were still billing our band $700 a month.
Wow.
It's over $7,000 a year to be featured on the Knot. And we begged them. We're like, guys, we're not making any money. You know, this could go on for a year. At the time, it was a couple of months. And they were like a credit card company. They were like, nope, we're not going to stop charging you. We're not going to stop charging you interest. We're not going to pause anything.
Crazy.
And yeah, so we just left. And so that's why we don't get a lot of weddings or as much as we did back in the day. We got like maybe 15 weddings now, but we had like 30 back in the day.
Yeah, I remember.
They don't let you sign back up once you stop the program.
Well, of course they would, but we won't. You know, we did for a little bit, but it was like, you know what? No, we can't do it. We can't justify it. Yeah, it was just uncool. And then we even looked at our stats when we did it. They were like, they came back and they gave us a little bit of a deal, but they're so big they don't care about us, right? They don't care about a little baby band from Jersey.
Right.
So they gave us like this discount deal for a couple of months, and we tried it out. But then we looked and we saw like they're not even promoting us. We're not even getting hits. So it was like, why even bother doing this? And yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway,
that sucks.
good times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing I'll say is another compliment before we wrap it up is one thing David would do too that was always great is like, let's say the band made $700 at a gig. David would split it, you know. It wasn't like he made extra. And then let's say the band made $10,000 at another gig.
David wouldn't split it.
He would split it.
He would? He's a cool dude.
He would
that
take
dude.
a little bit.
There you
He
go.
would take a little bit on the side for the merch or whatever else. But like, you know, there was no like, all right, you do this gig for $200, and then the next gig we're all making $1,000. it would be the next gig. You're all making $1,000. There was bonuses and stuff essentially for the better.
Well, I always felt that you gotta it's one for all and all for one.
Yeah,
you know?
keep everybody happy and keep everybody working.
Yeah, even now in the Wankas, right?
Yeah.
If I'm footing a bill for making a video for $3,000 and we get a gig for $1,000, I still like to split it with the band, even though I'm going fucking broke.
Yeah, right. So how are the Wankers? Let's talk about Wankers.
Wankers are awesome. The Wankers are kicking butt, mate.
They're kicking fucking butt, mate. Is that
Bollocks,
right?
yeah.
Bollocks, all up and down the street, is it?
Yeah. What was your uncle?
Lovely. So you guys have played a few gigs. You got some new people.
We are because I realized that if you want to play the theaters, you've got to be a tribute band.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it.
Right.
Either you're a tribute to the 80s, a tribute to the 90s, Fleetwood Mac, ABBA, the Bee Gees, Journey, Bon Jovi, whatever, Aerosmith. There is no tribute to Britpop,
Right.
and probably for good reason. Because nobody knows about fucking Britpop unless you're in New York or in one of the coastline cities, we're playing a huge thing on March 1st, which is probably going to be out, after this is going to come out after March 1st, right?
Maybe. We'll
All right.
see. We're
Anyway,
working on all
we sold like 12 tickets in an 800-seat theater in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So, they want to see Aerosmith. They want to see this. They don't want to see Oasis, Blur, Coldplay, The Clash, and all that stuff, whatever. But we love it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the venues love it that are in Baltimore. Philly loves it. So they're reaching out to us. And they're like, we'll put you on with a support, or we'll put you on with another band that really draws well. But it's a lot of fun for us because we are doing Britpop and beyond. And the thing is that, Britpop bores the hell out of me, too. I don't like Suede or Pulp or the Stone Roses. They're just fucking boring. And they're UK critic darlings. But in the U.S., you've got to hit them with the Oasis, the Coldplay, the Blur, Stereophonics maybe, Supergrass, Keen. But you also have to hit them with stuff that they know and they instantly recognize. So we do British pop, Bananarama, Wham, Duran Duran, Echo, Smiths, The Cure, even Rick Astley.
Sweet.
So we mix it up. It's Britpop and beyond.
Right on.
So it's Britpop but for a U.S. audience.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Cool.
Right on.
Where can we find all your stuff, David? Where do we find www.
TheWankers.net.
What about counterfeiters?
TheWankers. No, I'm just thecounterfeitersband.com.
Right on. And
Or Insta is The Counterfeiters NJ, and Instagram is The Wankers NJ.
right. And on top of all that stuff that you've done, your wonderful story, you do you host karaoke, right?
We do Rockstar events.
Rockstar events. And what else do you do?
I have a very good time making anti-Trump videos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of those.
Yeah, it's called Stupid America with a K.
Okay, cool.
StupidAmerica.com. Lots of stuff set to 80s classics.
Cool. Anything else you want to promote before we wrap it up?
No, I think I'm good.
Awesome. David Fagin.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
That
again.
was wonderful. That was insane.
Thank you for coming on to Sonic Tributaries.
It's a good jam.
Absolutely.
Good jam.
Great having you.
Love
Always.
jamming your song. It was cool,
Yeah, that
really
was fun.
fun. Thank you to TJ Pastori. Thank you to Eric Jellicombe. I'm Dylan Keelan. Can't wait to release this, and check out sonictributaries.com for more information. And you should be able to find this everywhere you get your podcasts very soon.
That's right.
All right, guys. Thanks. Peace.
Later.